Alright, good afternoon everyone. We have ourselves today a little conclusion, I guess, to the Dagaz Thunderbolt. It's definitely an all-around solid watch. I'd give it, I think my initial assessment of a B- kind of holds. But I just want to talk about my impressions after wearing the watch for a few days, which is not a ton of time for me, but definitely enough time for something this simple to get a feel for it, and I'll explain why I'm getting rid of it. So, what are the positives to this watch? Well, for one, it has acceptable loom. I can't remember if it's C1 or C3. I forgot to check on the website before I made the video, but it definitely feels like C1 to me, where it has really good endurance, or at least acceptable endurance, but definitely better than most watches at this price point besides Seiko. And even a lot of Seikos, honestly. But it's definitely not very bright in the outset. So everything that you see here pretty much is loomed. Numbers are, but the really thick points, and I have a pointer right now, are, you can see them. They're the 4 crosshairs, and then the numbers associated with those, and the triangle at the top. So those definitely glow very well, and so do the hands, but everything else, this and this and the numbers, 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 those all fade after an hour or two, which is okay. I mean, you could just hit it with a flashlight, but yeah, I'm not in love with the loom on this, but it's certainly passable. The case, comfortable, very long for its size. That I don't really like. Drilled lugs, I don't really need to use them, but that's nice. Crown sticks out a lot. I do not like that. This is very wide of a crown. Like, look at this. This is a 40 mil diver, and the crowns are, I think this crown's actually a little bigger with this dome on it. So, for a 38, 39 mil watch, this is just, the crown just sticks out too far for my taste for a field watch. It could still be this big, but maybe a little narrower, and that would allow for less wrist presence, which, for a field watch, you're not really looking for a ton of wrist presence, honestly. I don't really like the hands, like I talked about before. I don't like the glossiness of the hands, gloss black versus matte black on the dial. I'd rather they just did silver hands if they wanted a glossy look. I don't really like the second hand at all. I think it looks cartoonish with that like straight pointer. I also don't like that it's not loomed. I like my second hands having loom on them, and most of my field watches have a fully loomed second hand, so the entire length of the second hand is loomed. It's kept decent time, about 5 seconds a day. It's the bracelets. The bracelet itself, the H-links are excellent. They're perfectly comfortable. My only complaint on the bracelet, besides the fact that it's just a friction fit clasp, but I don't really see the point of a diver's extension on this watch. It's not a dive watch. You're not diving with it. You certainly will do aquatic activities, but if you're wearing a wetsuit, I don't see you wearing this watch, really. It's nicely executed, but I think that they could have taken the cost from that and made the stamping on this a little bit better. For example, when you put this on, the safety clasp, it's got a little play in it, which, this is not a really high-end watch, but still, I don't know, maybe I've been spoiled. But I think they could have done a slightly deeper engraving on this, or something more prominent if they were going to engrave it at all. The blasting is fine. It's pretty even. It's not had any real wear to it. But yeah, that's really all I got to say about this guy. It's definitely solid. I think a good first attempt for a field watch for them. The screws, one thing about the screws is they're double-ended. So if you look at the screws on, say, the Janot, these are single-ended screws. If I can find one. Let me open the glide lock up a little bit. There we go. So if you look at the screws on this side, see how the slots are on this side, and then they're just posts on this side. So that is different than this, where you see you have screws on this side and you have screws on this side. So that means that you have to hold a screwdriver to this side and then unthread it. So the plus side to this is that means that there are no threads on the links themselves. So so what that does for you is it allows that no matter how much you move or vibrate or do this, the threads are not going to come undone. So on a watch like this and some of my other watches, if you've got a lot of motion and vibration going on, the threads are in the link itself, so it'll eventually work the screw loose unless it's got Loctite on it. These, that'll never happen, but they're a massive pain to size. So it's kind of like a pin and collar on an Omega, where it's very secure and an awesome design from a, like, once you've had it sized perspective. But if you're sizing it a lot, which you may with this few micro adjusts, then it's a massive pain. So I mean, you need like a little like bracelet vise to hold it, so you can. Otherwise, you're trying to hold it and work two screwdrivers. It's a pain. So I guess a good feature, but I don't know if I prefer that to pin and collar or not. So, and there were no Loctite on any of these, which I would hope that at least the upper ones would be Loctite from the factory. I'd really honestly rather all of them are Loctite from the factory, just because, you know, I can break the Loctite, you know, blue Loctite, you know, break it yourself to size them and then reapply it. And that way the ones that you don't need to touch will just stay, rather than working, you know, and the off chance that something happens that makes these come loose for whatever reason. Like I said, not necessarily necessary with this design, but it's a nice touch when it's there. So, yeah, I'd say a solid B, B- for this watch. The AR is minimal, which I like. I don't really like AR at all, so if it's going to be there, I'd rather it be minimal. It's fairly legible. I didn't have a hard time reading it. It's pretty comfortable. As you can see, I didn't really put any wear on this watch, but I wore it for a few days. I wore it in a variety of activities, different heats, and yeah, that's all I got to say about this guy, I guess. So thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in the comments. Bye.